Damson, thank you so much, by the way, this morning for your time.
Of
Um,
course.
what a great show Snowfall is. It's so deep, so dark, and yet there's a real charisma about the show, a real caring between the characters.
Yeah, I feel like Snowfall is a show of the ages. It speaks to many different demographics. It speaks to 60s, 70s, 80s babies who have a nostalgic feeling from the show. But it also speaks to Gen Z in a sense that they get an educational side to the show, and they hopefully get to see some comparisons in the characters of some of their family members, and that too could spark different realities for them also.
In kicking off season four, we have this basic family of they're selling crack cocaine. They're involved in this, but now they're noticing some of the damage that they're causing to their community. Tell me a little bit about that change in season four.
I think that's something we don't often see in quote unquote drug shows. The consensus is always the drug dealer wants as much power as possible and he doesn't care who he takes down. Franklin Saint, on the other hand, he has more of a conscience, and he, for that reason, instead of fleeing with all the money he's made and completely abandoning South Central and what he's essentially created, he hopes to stay and fight. And as he's rebuilding himself this season, both spiritually and physically, he's starting to see some of the badness that he's created, or at least contributed to creating. And it's starting to get ahead of him. So we're going to see a lot of inner and outer conflict this season, specifically in Franklin's world. And I think that's just going to be incredibly engaging for an audience because, as I say, we don't see that often.
Now, your journey to this point as an actor has been really, really interesting. I mean, do you miss performing live on stages? I mean, with COVID and all of that, it must be something that's dear to your heart.
I don't miss it, man. I hated doing that stuff. It was, I do, man. I haven't done a play in a long time. I did a lot of plays in London, and just that human interaction is what acting is all about. That's where I get most of my tricks also. So the less we get to have that, the worse off it is. One thing I will say about filming during this time is, as you get through it and you get to the end of it, it's proof that our industry will strive no matter what it's thrown up against. So.
Yeah, it's both challenging and rewarding all at the same time, because there is progress out there on sets. I don't know what correlation there is to that, but it seems to me like we're getting better performances out of people.
It is. I know. I've watched season 4 and I'm like, wow, man, we might have to have these guidelines more often. I might have to sanitize and put masks on all the time. But it's interesting because, for instance, every year I do so much ADR, right? And this year I had to call them up and be like, hey, guys, there's not a lot of ADR. And they're like, hey, D, like everyone's on their A game, And it's interesting. People are so focused on the work now because they just want to get home and take off the mask. So it's really interesting. But as long as the work is prestige and as long as we're giving the viewers what they love, then I'm happy.
The correlation I wanted to draw between your theater work and Snowfall, there's something very Shakespearean about this series. And I'm not sure if I've got my finger on it right, but it's certainly something of, it seems like we're doing King Lear.
Wow. Hey, that's a huge compliment, man. It is in a sense, and going back to that theatrical background and me studying just the works of all the pioneers and the giants that I stand on, I do see Franklin like that. And there's many comparisons and inspirations that I looked at in order to carve out this character. And Lear was one of them. Also, weirdly enough, was Andy Serkis's Caesar in Planet of the Apes. I've never told anyone that before. But just how much of a leader he is, that's a play in itself as well, that story. So it really is interesting to look at his journey, to look at my journey as an actor. And I can't wait for audiences to see how this story ends.
In the coming year, will you be stepping behind the camera more and more, maybe with an eye to directing, writing an episode?
I'm more interested in producing, and that's something we're doing now. And just going forward, it's about getting myself behind the camera as much as possible in that aspect, so I can create more opportunities for people like me, for people who are from underprivileged backgrounds who don't necessarily even know how to get into this industry. That's my new calling as I approach the wonderful 30, and it's what I'm focusing on.
Well, as soon as everything kind of lifts, I'd love you to come out here to Salt Lake and talk to some of the kids here and who feel that they can't get a break. That would be such fun to have to host you out here.
That would be amazing. What's the weather like in Salt Lake?
Right now, it's crisp. It's cool. It's, it snows every so often. We had a bad snowstorm, not a bad snowstorm, but a snowstorm this weekend, but it's a beautiful place.
I'll be out there, man. Salt Lake. Let me jot that down.
It's a pleasure talking with you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Season 4 of Snowfall on FX and also on Hulu. Terrific show.
Thank you so much. Bless you.